to the erotic realm, where we explore the psychology of darker desires. I'm Em, and if you're new here, welcome. The Erotic Realm podcast has been growing rapidly, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you, especially those joining us from Substack. Whether you've been with me from the beginning or are just stepping into this world, I'm thrilled to have you here. This podcast is an extension of my work at Psychology of Desire, where I dive into the science and symbolism of the erotic mind. Here we move beyond surface-level discussions of kink and sexuality. We explore the why behind our desires. Each episode we step inside the erotic realm of someone who has ventured into these deeper, sometimes darker spaces. People who have found liberation, transformation, or even healing through their desires. By exploring the personal experiences of BDSM practitioners one by one, we break down the myths and dive into the reality of what it means to be a kinkster. So whether you're here out of curiosity, self-exploration, or a drive to understand the erotic mind on a deeper level, welcome. You're exactly where you need to be. And if you'd like to support this podcast and my greater work in mapping the architecture of erotic psychology, there are a few ways you can help. Follow and rate the show, share it with others who might enjoy it, and if you'd like to go deeper, consider becoming a paid supporter of my Psychology of Desire Substack, link below. I'll be announcing an exciting project there soon. So for now, let's dive into today's conversation. The following is a conversation with Kite, a primal shapeshifter whose journey into BDSM has been one of deep transformation, healing, and self-reclamation. As a brat, little, and wolf, Kite embodies the fluidity of desire, using kink as a tool to explore the raw edges of selfhood, intimacy, and surrender. Their story is one of discovery, of unlearning shame, of rewriting the narratives of being too much or not enough, and of finding healing in the interplay between power and vulnerability. In this episode, we explore the psychology of BDSM as a means of self-awareness, catharsis, and connection. We also dive into the science of BDSM's impact on mental well-being, the transformative nature of sharing intimacy with the world, and what it means to find a partner who embraces both your wildness and your tenderness. Get ready for a conversation about power, pleasure, and the primal, about how we shapeshift not just in play, but in life, about how kink is not just something we do, but something that, when we allow it, it can change us. Before we get started, I'd like to just take another moment to thank today's sponsor, Adult Bliss. Adult Bliss is Adelaide's ultimate destination for kink and sexual wellness. Just a 10-minute drive from the CBD, Adult Bliss has proudly supported the kink scene for years, offering the best selection of gear, including unique, locally made treasures you won't find anywhere else. But they're more than just a store. Adult Bliss is Adelaide's top-rated sexual health and wellness hub, with expert advice, a blog packed with insightful reads, and monthly kink and sexual health workshops that keep things exciting and educational. Whether you're exploring new fantasies or looking to deepen your sexual wellness journey, they've got you covered. Visit adultbliss.au and use the code EroticRealm25 for a cheeky discount of 15% off and a free gift. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast. I'm very happy to have Kite joining me today. Welcome, Kite.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolute pleasure. So I'd like to jump straight into the heart of things and explore your unique erotic realm. If I asked you to describe your sexuality, Kite, how would you put it into words?
I would say that I like a lot of different things. So I kind of consider myself to be a shapeshifter of
Cool.
sorts. So I can enjoy like energetic play, sensual sensations, kinky things, sexual things, and I like to have a little bit of all of the above incorporated into my erotic realm in general.
I love it. And what about your kinky identity in particular? What roles do you feel best define who you are?
That is an interesting one. So it took a while to kind of come up with some labels for those things.
Hmm.
But I would say probably the best things that I can identify with are a primal role, also a brat, and a little one. And they all kind of come out in different ways at different times.
Okay. Can you tell us more about that? The difference between primal, brat, and little?
Yeah, so my primal self is something that I think I discovered first and
Mm,
kind of uncovered um, because I like very unfiltered, very raw type um, sexual encounters that are, maybe include biting or wrestling
mm,
or growling, a lot of verbal, but not necessarily words. So sounds, moaning, growling, screaming, yelping, kind of like mewling sounds, and kind of both partners kind of putting a lot of physical effort into the play and kind of wrestling with control or dominance,
mm.
which is also kind of what got me interested in um, BDSM and sort of once I realized that I was like, oh, that is what this is talking about. Like that's what I'm doing, and this is sort of some words and vocabulary to go along with that.
Fascinating. And what
And
about your brat or your little side as well?
yeah, and then I think kind of the thing that I discovered next was the bratty side
Hmm.
because I wanted to see, kind of in that same sense of testing for dominance or seeing, if I do this, how does my partner react?
Mm,
So if I disobey or if I tease or if I poke at someone, like what do they do? Do
hmm.
they keep their cool? And do they stay like in control of their own emotions and like their physical nature, or do they get frustrated? Um, mentally, is somebody going to be quick and witty and kind of like banter back? Do they, are they comfortable with that? Or do they get kind of annoyed? um, because like I said, I like a lot of different pieces of stimulation. And so I like someone who can kind of roll with the punches and switch back and forth between roles in sort of like a natural organic way.
Hmm.
Um, but I like kind of testing the boundaries. Like, am I going to be too much? And just kind of seeing what that reaction is like.
Okay, so I'd love to explore more about your personal erotic psychology based on what you filled out in the pre podcast form. You went pretty deep and you mentioned a few things about your journey that you wanted to share. So I'd like to start at the beginning for you. How did your journey into kink begin for you? Was there a specific moment that you realized that you were kinky that you'd like to share?
I was a young adult and
Hmm.
someone had shared with me like a kink inventory. Um, and
Okay.
I think it was before, like now we kind of have this online questionnaire that you can click all the bubbles and kind of it spits out different rules and percentages. But this was before all of that. So
Mm,
it was like an Excel spreadsheet, and it was kind of like a negotiation worksheet of like, are you interested in this? Is it something you want to do, or might want to know more about, or is it a hard limit? And I was looking at these things and I, filled it out and I said, well, I think I'm probably pretty vanilla. Like I didn't really go hard into a lot of, of the more edge play type things. And they were like, no, I think the fact that you are interested in at least like 30% of these things means that you that
mhm,
you are a little bit kinky. And I was like, oh, I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm just normal. But then I sort of you know, it just sort of dawned on me like, yeah, it's normal for me, but it's not necessarily normal for everyone. Like not everybody thinks about these things in the same
Mm-hmm.
way, and sort of overcoming um, a sense of shame about sexuality as a young female in the Midwest in the United States, which is quite conservative, religiously. There, like there's abstinence only education about
Mm.
sex. So just going from that background and kind of being like, I think I am a little bit different than a lot of the people. Um, and just sort of building over time and becoming more comfortable with who I am and the things that I enjoy.
Mm. I love that it all started with a spreadsheet for you. That's super nerdy. It's so cool.
I am super nerdy. Yeah, I spend a lot of time in Excel spreadsheets for my job.
Cool.
I use them just for fun.
Hmm.
So yes, that's very much me. I am very nerdy, and I love when I heard about this podcast, I'm like, oh, I get to talk to a sexologist about these things, and I get to listen to the other episodes with people sharing their, inner worlds. It's just amazing. I almost went to graduate school for a PhD in human sexuality, and it's fascinating to me what people think and what people do and how they have gone from their journey over life to develop these things.
Hmm. It sure is fascinating, and we're all so unique and different, which is what I love about it. And sharing everyone's stories on this podcast, it's why we're doing it. It's just, yeah, it's wonderful. So you mentioned using BDSM and sexuality as tools for both mental and emotional healing. How has exploring BDSM and sexuality been healing for you?
Yeah, it's sort of realizing that I am not too much. I
Mm,
have a variety of interests, and that's okay. It's okay to like a lot of different things. And um, and that doesn't mean that I, because sometimes like I'll struggle and I'll get into like a rut. Like if things stay the same for a long period of time, I'll get bored.
mm,
But now I've learned the language to kind of communicate to a partner, I feel like I need a little more in this area. Like if we've done a lot of overtly sexual things, whether like my primal play is pretty sexual, um, but then there's sensation play that can be more about just like a physical touch that's not overtly sexual. It can be a temperature based, like hot and cold, or focusing on different senses, like having a blindfold so that the visual is eliminated from that, and focusing more on like smell or taste or something. Um, so I've been able to kind of create that language to express what I'm needing and feeling, and also sort of play into different roles
mm,
without needing that to change my personality. So, for example, I'm still sort of becoming comfortable with this idea of being a pillow princess
mhm,
because because in my mind it kind of comes across as like, oh well, if I'm playing in that role, then I must come across as being very self-centered, not very interested in the pleasure of my partner or
mhm,
partners. But in reality, in my normal everyday life, I'm usually hyper focused on the needs of other people.
mm. For those
So
who
it's
may not
sort of,
know, can you just share quickly what a
yes.
pillow princess is?
Yeah. So for me, the way I define it would be mostly a receiver of pleasure rather
Mhm,
than a giver. Um, I mean, my partners still generally receive pleasure while I am being a pillow princess and receiving like their what they are giving to me, that is actually very fulfilling to them.
Mm.
But it's a little bit more of a passive or a submissive type role.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you've had to go through the process of understanding that that's not being selfish. It is a giving role as well as a taking role. Is that right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. It's very hard for me to like accept
Mm-hmm.
that attention being on me, especially if there's more than one partner and I'm
Mm.
receiving from both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Having a lot of praise or, basically because a lot of the pillow princess, meaning sort of just lying there
Mm.
on the pillow and not doing much outwardly other than just receiving that pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
um but it takes sort of a while for me to get into that and to kind of go into a subspace where my brain chatter kind of like quiets down and I can just enjoy the sensations, and a lot of emotions actually come up for me in that state. So there is a lot really going on below
Mm.
the surface, but it might not be apparent just, looking at it or thinking about it.
Mm. What sort of emotions come up for you when you're being a pillow princess?
Ooh, I have a hard time accepting compliments, accepting
Mm.
praise, um, being, kind of going back to that idea of uh, me having felt like I was too much.
Mm.
And I kind of have to sit with the, discomfort of, these people are, person or people are giving me all of this pleasure and I might still want more.
Mm-hmm.
I, and feeling maybe a little bit unworthy to get more or to ask for more,
Mm.
or to, if I start to cry, if I start to laugh, um I've gotten fearful, like sometimes the pleasurable sensations are so intense that I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can keep going, and I'm experiencing this then with another person who's witnessing this. So
Mm.
it's very vulnerable for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing. You described being a curious child and teenager, but facing shame for your sexuality. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say to her about desire, worth, and boundaries?
Yeah, that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of in my role of being a parent now, I've been able to kind of look at that toward, parenting our own children and then also myself and creating a different conversation, specifically around boundaries and, um, what knowing what I can give and what is in within my capacity to
Mm.
do or desire to do, and not having to people please someone else in order to get, like love and attention and
Mm-hmm.
affection. um Definitely, that has been like something that I've wrestled with, and exactly like reparenting myself kind of in the process of being a mother too,
Mm.
because um it's sort of like, well, of course I want to have these conversations with um children, age appropriate conversations, of course. But then looking it back on it and like, I deserve this grace for myself
Mm-hmm.
as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, as part of the podcast, Kite, I like to explore a quote around sexuality. And today I'd like to ask your viewpoint about a quote from Havelock Ellis, who was a British physician, psychologist, and writer. And he played a pioneering role in the study of human sexuality. He's best known for his influential works, such as his multi volume series Studies in the Psychology of Sex. And his research challenged many of the prevailing attitudes about sexuality, gender, and sexual behavior. And he actually contributed to the laying the groundwork for modern sexology. So he once said that what is natural is not always good, and what is unnatural is not always bad. Do you find that this perspective resonates with your own experience in BDSM?
That's curious.
Mm.
So, what is natural is not always good,
Mm-hmm.
and what is unnatural
Mm-hmm.
is not always bad.
So I guess he was writing in, the early period of sexology, and he was exploring the idea about sexuality being a natural thing. And sometimes people get up to things that someone might perceive as unnatural, particularly during that time. Although people still have that idea now, right, about BDSM, that sometimes people think that it's an unnatural occurrence and outside of the norm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think it's so personal. We have such personal experiences
Mm-hmm.
where um, from the outside, if someone doesn't understand all of the nuance, it can seem like something is unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
But like for example, like my role as so my husband and I have a daddy dom little girl dynamic.
Mm.
And at first I saw that as um like I was when we first started exploring that angle, and he said, well, I think that I would, like that if my honorific was daddy, like if you called me daddy. And I thought, oh goodness, like, does this have to do with incest? Does this have to do
Mm.
with me being a child? And I was very, very nervous. So I dug into it a little more and sort of unwrapped the layers and my initial instincts with that, and discovered that it's more of a caregiver role or an unconditional role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pretending to be a child.
Mm-hmm.
He's not pretending to actually be my father. So, it's there are different, like, if there are two consenting adults creating something, um, I don't always, I think that there are like layers to what that looks like that might be misunderstood, I suppose.
Mm.
um but that isn't really a bad thing, like if you're exploring your own fantasies, whether by yourself or with someone else. um I think that can, maybe look on the surface one way, but if the meaning for the people actually involved, is something that's healthy and caring and respectful,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most important piece.
Now, you've explored other edgy areas such as sensation play and edge play itself, and they seem to hold a special place for you. What is it about the contrast between things like pain and pleasure that resonate with you and that you enjoy?
Yeah, I like sort of, I guess this is maybe the nerdy side of me as well.
Cool.
I like to to think about the sensations and like the brain chemicals, like what is happening in my
Mm.
body physically that's causing this sensation.
Mm-hmm.
What is pain? What is pleasure?
Mm.
Can something be so pleasurable that it's painful, or can something be pleasurable that's actually, that's mixed with pain?
Mm-hmm.
um and how can something, how can you go from a very light touch to a very like physically aggressive or intense type of touch, and how can all of these things um come together to create this experience that is something positive for all of the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it kind of becomes this. I like to have a wide breadth of experiences. So, I'll try a lot of things at least once. I might not go back to it, but sometimes it's just trying different, and also knowing, like, if my mood is different,
Mm-hmm.
I have other ways to express myself. So, if I don't have a lot of energy, that day because it's, after a long work day. There's a lot of mental stress. Like, how can I still connect with my partner in a way that feels good for both of us without having to be something super intense? Or on the other side of it, if, we have a lot of energy, how can we get out that? So it's sort of like having a toolbox, like all these different things in the toolbox, and
Mm.
what do we need to pull from today?
Mm-hmm. I love the toolbox metaphor. How do you decide what tool you're pulling out of the toolbox?
Sometimes it's a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it happens naturally and it's just sort of, as we fall into it. But a lot of times it is a conversation of, what kind of cups do you need filled?
Mm.
Do you need to take a bubble bath and, have a glass of wine or like read a book before we do this?
Mm-hmm.
Are there things on the to-do list that we need to check off before we can move on to um, having fun and whatever that looks like?
Mm-hmm.
So it usually is a discussion in that moment of uh, between both of us of what do you need, what are you looking forward to, what might be too much right now, like is there anything that we want to take off the table so
Mm.
that you can really just relax into the moment. So I think in BDSM we talk about hard limits or things that we don't want to do, but even on a day-to-day basis there might be times where sometimes anal sex might be okay, but for today and tonight, like maybe that's just not something that
Mm-hmm.
we want to experience. And sometimes knowing that ahead of time and just kind of saying, okay, we both know that's not going to happen, um, just creates a sense of comfort and relaxation.
Yep, as always, it comes back to communication. Communicate, 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 and things will most likely work out to be pleasurable for both people involved, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd love to discuss a thought provoking article that explores the positive psychological impacts of BDSM with you. The title is Effects of BDSM Practices and Their Implications for Psychological and Psychotherapeutic Work, and it's a systematic literature review. So they actually went through 181 studies and focused on 9 key pieces of research. And this research revealed that BDSM practices can do much more than just physical pleasure. They found in particular that BDSM enhances self awareness and authenticity, offers a welcome break from the pressures of adult responsibilities, improves partner relationships by honing our communication, negotiation, and trust skills. And it also points to the power of physical touch, open dialogue, and a supportive community to create a sense of safety and well-being. Intriguingly, some of the studies they looked at even noted that participants can experience transcendental states of consciousness, benefiting them psychologically, emotionally, and physically. Now, given your rich journey, Kite, from exploring kink to find healing in your practice, this research really resonates, and I'm eager to dive into how these findings mirror your own experiences and perspectives. So, one of the most fascinating findings, in my opinion, is that BDSM can serve as a departure from the burdens of adult responsibility, almost like a temporary escape. Have you experienced a moment in your play that felt liberating in this way? And if so, can you tell us about it?
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. So um, a lot of my day-to-day life is as a full-time employee,
Mm-hmm.
as a mother, as a wife. So, we're going through the phase of life with young kids, and there's a lot of responsibility domestically, and I mean, and having friends and social, there's like kind of a balancing of a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do different play styles within I would say a DS dynamic, a lot of it I can give up the need to make decisions. And my partner can kind of guide us through um, an experience where I can just let all of that go. I
Mm,
can put aside the role of being a mother or thinking about work. And I know that I can pick those back up when I need to,
mm,
but it's this sort of respite where I can take time to be this other piece of myself, an erotic, sensual, sexual, kinky side of myself, and and just focus on that for a while. And so there will be reminders in the middle of playing of you don't have to do anything else right now.
mm,
Just enjoy, just feel this pleasure, accept this, like be here now. So it's a little, it reminds me a little bit of a meditation. So, you talked about like a transcendental sort of state. And I have a few years of experience with teaching yoga,
mm,
meditation, and it is sort of this creating this space to be present, um, and being able to um, just experience rather than having my brain get in the way sometimes.
mm. Have you had a particular experience that you'd like to share with us where you went into a different state of consciousness through BDSM?
I think I have had sort of just a quieting of
Mm,
my mind and going very still. Um, but for me, so far, it's been like kind of short lived,
mm-hmm,
because there's times where I feel like I have to reassure my partner that I'm okay. So I think I'm still working
mm-hmm,
on that of sort of having that confidence to just be a noodle. That's what usually we call it. Like I'm just a noodle right now.
cool.
But being able to let myself really sit there and like steep in it and
Mm,
not be worried about reassuring someone that like, oh no, I'm okay. I'm just very quiet and I'm not moving.
mm. Is the place that you go to similar to the states that you've achieved through meditation and yoga, or is it something different?
Quietness of the mind
Mm,
is very similar. I think physically it's different. A lot of what it takes for me to get there is like a physical exertion, which I think is could be similar to some yoga practices, doing
mm-hmm,
sort of a physical exertion with the body in order to quiet that piece down to have um, more of a mental experience. It does feel different because a lot of times when I'm meditating or doing yoga, I'm alone. So sometimes that's even easier for me,
mm,
kind of as an introvert. I think it's a little easier for me to go to that mindset.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really thought about that connection before.
Cool.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Well, let me know what you think after you've thought about it a bit more too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, the supportive community created by BDSM is also noted as a key factor in promoting psychological and emotional well-being in the research. In your journey, how has being part of the BDSM community helped you overcome things like past shame and foster a sense of belonging and acceptance?
Yeah, I do like being part of a social network and seeing those connections and
Mm-hmm.
um, going to an event and having people there that I know and have gotten to know over time. And I think it normalizes a lot of things for me to see different aspects of myself reflected in the community. And specifically where we live, we see a lot of um, overlap in the BDSM community, the swinger community, the ethical non-monogamy. So there are a lot of like most of our events will sort of attract, like there might be a BDSM event, there might be a swinger event, but you'll see the same people at both.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's a little tricky to like piece apart. Um, but being able to talk to people about different things and realize, hey, I might have felt ashamed that I, got something out of like water sports, for example, um, like playing with urination. Like that was one that took me a while to be like, I don't know. This one is a little taboo even for me, right? Like I don't know if I can feel comfortable telling people that this is something I'm interested in. And it took another person saying, well, this is how I play with it with my partner. This is what
Mm.
I like. This isn't a degrading thing. We do it as sort of a primal marking ritual. And I was like, yes, that's what it is for me too, but I didn't have the language.
Mm.
So I think that sort of happens in community as you sort of normalize what maybe wider society would consider to be abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of realize, well, I'm not doing this in isolation. I'm not figuring this out all by myself. I'm not the first person. I won't be the last person. Um, there are other people that enjoy this, and it's sort of that sort of mix between exploring your own sexuality and erotic realm and then comparing and contrasting to others, not in a judgmental way, but in a kind of supportive way that just says, oh, I can be proud of that. I can share that. I can talk about that. Or here's this person that will understand. And then you find, usually a lot of other people who actually understand.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned your husband a few times, and I'd love to chat about your partnership. Can you
Sure.
share the story of how you met your life partner? Was there a defining moment when you knew that they were the one?
So we met on the Field app, which is specifically people looking for ethical, non-monogamous relationships or polyamorous relationships. He was part of a couple, and I was looking for couples specifically to just sort of have fun with, and I didn't really want to become emotionally involved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sort of over time, we um, realized that we had something, really unique and special. Um, we uh, Neither one of us had a dominant submissive relationship before, so when we started exploring that, I think that was really when the emotional piece kicked in for us. I think it would have been there regardless, but that really was something that grew quickly because we were having so many deep conversations about emotions, doing the emotional play. Um, uh, I would tell him different stories about my background, about my history, like different sexual traumas, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to know about this. I don't want to shy away from it. I want
Mm.
to see what we can do to help you feel comfortable, help you kind of reclaim certain things, like maybe different sexual positions. Um, there would be times where, emotions would come up and I would cry and he would say, you're just so beautiful and I want you so much, just kind of no matter what state I was in. So,
Mm.
kind of going back, whether I was in a bratty sort of teasing mood or if I wanted to push back physically and wanted him to dominate me physically, all of these things, I just always felt like he saw me for who I was and what I need. And he was not afraid of it. He never stepped back. It never took him, like he was never like, oh wow, like that's a lot. I don't know if I can do that. He
Mm-hmm.
was just kind of like, hey, I'm here for you. I love the whole piece of you, every single part. Um, and he just saw me in a way that was very different, um, maybe from other partners. He was intimidated, um, by any part of my personality or of me wanting to explore with other people. Um, I'm pansexual, so it was kind of important for me to continue to like express those pieces of myself in some way. And and we and he was there. He was consistent. um and even when I would bring up things that were a struggle or hurt feelings or something that he did that didn't quite sit right with me, he would take responsibility for that and say, yeah, I messed up. Let's figure out how we can go forward in a better way. But he also didn't at the same time, play the victim and say, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible human, I'm
Mm.
so sorry. It was sort of this, oh yeah, that was a mistake. Let's figure out how we can grow together and figure out something where we don't have those hurt feelings again. I might mess up again in the future. um but it was just this, I think we both had this curiosity of like, what are we building together and how can we do it, and is it possible even to have really great, intense primal sex plus the daddy dom little girl part plus raise a family together.
Mm.
So I think it took some time to try to to figure out like, can we have it all? Is this real?
Mm.
um you know is this a healthy relationship, and what all these things mean? We come into these relationships with all of our own emotional baggage
Mm.
and perspectives. um so yeah, really, I think it was kind of a slow building over time. And um we even separated for a couple of months, and sort of continued to need each other for certain things or ask, for help, or just sort of like, hey, like you've been my person for this. Can you, be there for me in this way? And just sort of realizing like, this is really good. Um, as scared as we might be to try to meld all of this together, um, I think we can do it. I think there's something special here. So yeah, I think it was a combination of
Mm.
kind of a bunch of little moments over time.
Mm. Now, you and your partners share amazing pictures and videos of your intimate moments together. Many of them are raw and primal. What does it feel like to share such intimate moments of your eroticism with the world? Is it part of your reclamation process that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I feel like my perspective, so my husband is Carpenter Pat, on Fet Life, and I'm Kite in the Snow. So you've heard M refer to me as Kite,
Mm-hmm.
and so he has quite a number of Fet followers, and we had started dating well before that. Um, and it was sort of interesting to try to figure out like, what are we sharing and why, and what is the driver behind it. Because I think at first it was sort of, oh, it's really interesting, how many followers could we get? I was posting just as regularly as he was at first, and then I kind of took I think it was like 6 to 8 month break from Fet where I wasn't on, um, and I wasn't posting anything, and then I kind of came back, but I didn't have followers on my page. Um, it kind of felt a little overwhelming, and it was like, well, what can I do to feel like this is not a popularity contest, right? Like there has to be a deeper meaning for me other than just sharing an image that is, erotic or sensual or attractive. And for me, it was trying to portray a positive, what I would consider a healthy dynamic um, with others. And so a lot of it becomes almost like a diary of our relationship. Like he will write things in a caption to me that we quite honestly don't have this, like when we're going about our day, it's not like he just says these things to me randomly. We have so much other things going on in our life as busy parents. And it sort of just creates this almost like devotional touchstone to be like, hey, I was thinking about you. And then we sort of communicate to each other. Um, and sometimes, to other people, even at large of, you know, um, just remembering to take care of yourself, to know, hey, if you have a down day, it's okay to just sit on the couch and read or cancel plans if you need to. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be yourself. Like you are worthy and you are loved just as you are. Um, so that is a lot of what we do that's like the emotional piece that has a lot more meaning for me than even the exhibition. I'm actually more of a voyeur than an exhibitionist.
Okay.
So it's funny because yeah, he is, I think, the more outward sort of personality, but I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing his creativity. He does some artistic things like writes erotica and does audio recordings of that, and I love seeing him get fulfilled from creating art that has meaning for him.
Many people are on FetLife looking for a kinky life partner like what you have. What advice would you give for those that are seeking that special kinky someone?
The biggest thing, and I do have people ask me or ask us about this, and I always say start with the human first. So look at the person in front of you before you have kinky interactions, before you develop a dynamic or get into something officially. Just spend time with them, see how they treat you, see how they treat others, kind of like any other relationship or friendship. I think a lot of the intense play that we do in the context of BDSM it releases a lot of brain chemicals that are they're flooding you with really good feelings. They're flooding you with chemicals that tell your body to bond with this person that you're experiencing this with. And I think like trying to establish that trust and those healthy boundaries and relationship with that other partner before adding all of those other kind of complex things on top of it. That it's always my recommendation, especially for when people are very new to BDSM and maybe haven't experienced a dynamic, a one-on-one dynamic, or are just very new to the lifestyle in general. And sort of start by going to a public event, go to a munch, see how people are interacting with each other, build up rapport, find the places where you feel safe and the people that you feel comfortable with, before just jumping into something, because I think a lot of people lead with the role first. So they might say, well, I'm looking for a submissive, I'm looking for a dominant, I want someone who will be my daddy. How can I find that person? And my answer is always, well, I think you find the person first, and then you kind of realize what dynamic fits best with how you just sort of naturally interact with each other, rather than trying to fit someone into a box or like be ascribed to a label, because it might look very different depending on what each of you are considering. Like with my daddy, like we don't do spankings necessarily. We don't really do um I don't have like a task list or something like that. So um the way people define even certain roles can be very different. So it's almost like you have to find the roles that fit you rather than you trying to fit a role.
That's great advice. Thank you. Now, as part of our conversation today, I asked you to bring along something to share, such as a quote, book, or movie that's influenced your sexuality. Can you tell us what you've brought along today and how it's shaped your understanding of your erotic realm?
Yeah, I thought about this a lot. And
Okay.
the thing that eventually jumped out at me was I realized that I like vampire movies. So,
Mm,
and books. So, like Underworld, Queen of the Damned, those were like a few different awakenings in me as like a pansexual or bisexual woman being very attracted to the female main characters
mm,
and realizing, and sort of having this experience going, well, maybe this is just what everybody feels, and having, female friends at the time kind of be like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like I was very much more into it than they were. And I'm like, oh, I think I'm different. Like
mm,
I'm very much into this idea of, you know, very sharp teeth biting my neck. Like that's that's so interesting. I want to know more about that.
mm,
And I was recently at a vanilla party at my best friend's house, who I know she is kind of kinky, but I didn't know, anybody else, everybody else was there just for like a friends Thanksgiving. And other women were talking about, yeah, when I realized I was bisexual, it was because I was sitting there watching these movies. And it was like, oh goodness, okay, we're among people who kind of understand. And then I had mentioned Fat Life at one point, and some of those women like came over and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm on Fat Life too, but no one knows I am. And I don't know what to do with this. It's all new. And can you help me, understand like events to go to or best practices, or, they were so excited about it. And so really it was sort of, at the time of sort of watching these films and being attracted to this sort of dark, mysterious, strong female lead, but not quite knowing what it was. So kind of remembering those early awakenings of that, and then so many, decades later, being able to use that as a point of connection with people that I didn't know. But now I know a lot better because it was like an entryway to express more of themselves and kind of know, hey, I'm around someone who I can express this safely with.
mm-hmm. Beautiful. What about True Blood? Have you seen that?
Oh, yes, I've read
Mhm.
the books, I've watched the show. Yes. Oh,
Mhm.
so yes. Oh gosh. And then it's even been a few years, I think, since I've really thought about them. But
Mhm.
even in preparing for the podcast, I was like, you know what? I really want to go back and read some vampire smut. I think that would really hit the spot right now.
Oh, enjoy. I have a tradition on the podcast where I also ask you a question sourced from one of the listeners. And the listener question is a bit of a different one today. They'd like to know more about who you are outside of kink, what area of work you're in, if you're comfortable sharing that, and what are your non kink hobbies and interests.
Interesting. I like it. I mean, and it makes sense because I think, we are whole humans.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just our kinks. We are a combination of all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I work in finance. I do a lot of data management type things. So as I mentioned, I'm in Excel spreadsheets all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be very in my head, and it can be very hard to get me out of my head and out of a productive, efficient mode, since I'm in that role so much, which is kind of how the BDSM things kind of help take me out of that. Um, and then kind of as a, you know, similar to the primal way that I might like to play in the bedroom, I also like to be in nature. I like hiking, just being out in the woods or the mountains if I get a chance to do that. We don't really live near mountains, but we live near a lot of woods. So um, I have noticed a lot of overlap between the things I like to do in my vanilla life and how that compares and contrasts with the things that I like to do um, in the bedroom too.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Well, it's sort of, like nothing exists in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So every single piece of ourselves play off of each other. So if and myself in particular, I like to be on both ends of the spectrum. I like to do I
Mm.
like to do I like to do a lot of things. I like to have a lot of experiences. So I like to sort of balance going to um a lifestyle, like a swingers lifestyle party, and seeing and like watching a lot of people engaging in sexual acts. And then I like to go home and read a book.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this um, just wide spectrum of things that can either be similar or disparate to each other. And I enjoy sort of taking the thread and seeing like what all is connected to this.
Mm.
If I like primal um, play, so I identify as a wolf, which to me like symbolizes an equal mate, and that like my submission needs to be earned,
Mm.
which is also very similar to my bratty side because I like to know that um, if I disobey or if I tease or if I push someone like my dominant partner, that like they will be able to roll with that, and it not even in a like a punishment sense, like I'm not punished for these things, but that it turns both of us on and they can do things in a way where I would like willingly submit and not through like a physical um interaction for them to like force me in some, like I mentioned, like with spankings or different things. um I like how those kind of play together, but they're
Mm.
also different. So I'd like to, that's the mental aspect of it for me, is how do these things go together? Like I'm such a caregiver in my role as a mother. How does that play with then me taking on the role of a little and having my daddy be more of a caregiver to me,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of experiencing both sides of that role?
I love it. Now, a fun question for you. Can you share a peak erotic experience that felt especially powerful or meaningful to you?
A peak sexual experience that felt very meaningful. I will have to go. I have done two threesomes with my husband and my boyfriend, and they have both been extremely meaningful in the sense there's a few different pieces to it. It was definitely physically overwhelming, just to have two people focusing on me
Mm.
receiving pleasure. So I kind of talked about like that as like the pillow princess role and being the receiver of this, and sort of it was very difficult for me mentally and emotionally to get to like accept that they both wanted to be in the same room, uh giving me all of this love, attention, pleasure together. I had other partners, male partners, who felt very jealous about me enjoying, if I enjoyed, time with another man or was attracted to another man. And this idea that they were both putting my pleasure and my enjoyment above their own, although they, I think, also very much enjoyed it. Um, but that was, I mean, it would mentally, and even now, I think, because that was probably a year and a half ago for the first time, I'm still sort of mentally grappling with that, like accepting that I wasn't too much. I could ask for that and I can have that and it's okay. And they want to give that to me. It's okay for me to enjoy it, um, and feel comfortable talking about it, asking for it. Um, even as simple as like, when we've gone out to events and I will hold both of their hands and I just feel so spoiled and like the center of attention, which is actually very uncomfortable for me. So it's very funny that yes, we do kind of have a large following on Fed and lots of people looking at pictures of my husband and I. Although my boyfriend and I are quite private, we don't really have a lot of pictures. We have a different um, relationship. So um, it's been very interesting to just feel like so spoiled from having not one but two amazing people in my life.
I'm happy that you have both of them and that you feel spoiled. You deserve it.
I'm trying to accept that. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today, Kite? Perhaps something that you feel we haven't covered that you wanted to speak about, or a topic that you'd like to elaborate more on?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. You are an amazing host. You came in with a plan and you've had, all the questions, and it's just been such a great experience to kind of have the dialogue. Um, and I highly encourage, if you're listening to this episode, to go and listen to all of the other ones. You're going to learn something new every time, even if more than one of the participants has the same kink or something similar. Like Em said, everyone is so different and they bring such a different perspective. It's so interesting to see how people all around the globe are doing things differently. People from different cultures, different countries. It's amazing just to hear everybody's story.
It sure is. So what's next for you in your erotic exploration? Do you have any erotic goals for this year or an area of kink you're wanting to explore more?
I do. I have a newer partner that I've been doing some negotiations with, for some more of the sensual type play. They're also a switch between, a top and a bottom, dominant or submissive. So I'm excited to do that. My current partners are, for the most part, take a top role and I take a bottom role. So someone who is interested in just a different slice of all of those kinks, to be able to explore and delve into that. Someone who gets excited about those things like I do, in a different way. So I'm very thankful to have a lot of wonderful humans in my life that I can experience those things with and share with them.
That sounds really fun and like you have a lot to look forward to. And if you could sum up your erotic realm in one word at the moment, what would it be?
One word. It's such a tricky one. I'm going to go back to shapeshifter. I think I like being able to kind of dabble in different areas and pull things out of that toolbox that I mentioned. That they're things that are just always evolving and fluid. So it's not necessarily just one thing. It can encompass a lot of different things at once.
Wonderful. I'd like to thank you for being so open and sharing yourself with me and our listeners today, Kite.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This was something I've been looking forward to.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Em, and this has been the Erotic Realm podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you could follow the podcast and leave a rating or review. Your support means the world to me, and it helps the erotic realm grow and reach more people who may benefit from hearing the inner world of fellow kinksters. I'd also love to hear from you, my listeners, if you have questions you'd like me to ask on the podcast, want to be a guest and share your story, or if you're ready to explore your erotic realm one-on-one with a coaching package, head over to theeroticrealm.com. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, stay perverted.